Hey everyone. So, I don't know where this conversation is going to go, and I could fuck it up, so sorry. Here's the thing. I want to talk about the concept of passing. I recently was with Zena, and we were listening to Julia Serrano's book, Whipping Girl.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, she kind of talked about passing as the different forms of it and ways it works. That is, the way she spoke about it was the tendency to appear, as she called it, cissexual, or which is cisgender in more modern parlance. Remember, they were transsexuals, cissexual makes sense. So basically the idea is that passing, for those who don't know, who's not familiar with trans identities, is the idea of a trans person appearing cis. So when you see a trans girl who absolutely looks like a girl and meets all that, and you immediately react to them as a girl, they're passing, that's the idea. Now, I talked about passing from two perspectives on this channel. The first one is a defense mechanism. That is, passing feels like it's necessary for us to be able to be in society because it decreases the likelihood of violence. That's just the truth. More violence is generally put in public or in general against non-passing trans women, though there is still violence put against passing trans women, but that tends to happen, in relationship, in bedroom, etc. Passing is a really weird concept in regards to discussing this with trans people because, for one, non-binary people can't pass. This was the whole realization of ContraPoints' video called The Aesthetic. Luxander did a watch of it, and it was brilliant. But one thing that Luxander came to is, non-binary people can't pass. There's no way you can ever fully pass because there's not a pre-existing gender identity that
you can pass as.
Yeah, as pass as you can't. There's nothing to fit into. And so the thing is with passing is there are some people that view passing as absolute necessity. This is people who are usually either dealing with a lot of dysphoria. They could be trans medicalists, but I doubt it. Some are that way though. And usually passing is very important for people that are very interested in maintaining, a very binary view of gender. That is, if you were born a male, you transition female, you're trying to meet that goal as much as possible. The problem with passing is a lot of people feel like it is a form of hiding or a form of trying to minimize the effects of being trans in society, which is a truth to that. But the problem is passing also can be a way in which a person feels and gets gender euphoria. It can be a way in which a person feels like they actually fit into the gender they identify as. So we get into this problem of some people view passing as sort of like trying to fit in, essentially, while others tend to look at it as this thing that is sort of proof that they are fitting into the gender they are. Now, some people are going to take that too far, obviously. But if you take that in consideration with the defense mechanism thing, passing gets to be really problematic because you're basically fucked either way. Right? So if I pass as feminine, that's arguable, right? Depending on who I ask and what's going on. Because as Julia Serrano points out, passing is not a thing that I do. I can make myself look however I need to, but it's something that's afforded to me because my trans status means that the appearance of me being cisgender to some people can be taken away at any moment. Think about that for a second. This is what the aesthetic was trying to point out. People can take away your gender. Right? By not engaging with it.
With the caveat of in a personal format there.
Yeah. They can literally ignore it and just not engage with it. So the problem is passing is a very difficult discussion because a lot of people have very different feelings on it. For me, passing has been very important because, I don't want to get the shit kicked out of me. I don't want harm to come to me. Part of it's also because I want to look the way I want. As I've said in other videos, I've hyperbolically said, I'm 40 and I'm going to be dead soon, and I would like to look as cute and as hot as humanly possible before that happens.
I'm over in my boat going, wait, what am I wearing today? What am I doing? I have no idea.
No, you're living the true guy lifestyle.
That's true. But, again, there's no
I've definitely been there.
Even if I had a mask day, I can't fully pass on that thing because a lot of times binding is somewhat painful because I deal with a lot of swelling due to PMDD and cycle issues. Hooray. You know, so I kind of just get to deal with people's defaults, but default, you know, hey, you're a girl, but that's not really real either, you know, and I am in the non-binary. There is both.
Mm-hmm.
Passing is not really an option. Not
Yeah.
really something I can even consider hoping for.
Well, and if you're someone who's super fucking queer, you can't really pass. Like, a lot of people are very like queer and don't really have the ability to fit in that. Yeah, cosmetic surgery is the same thing. There are people that will give trans women or trans men shit for surgeries that are affirming because there's a belief that you're trying to fit into society standards. And that could be true, but it also could be that you're trying to, in some ways, meet what you have in your head, which is why I want to propose a new term. Fresh off the presses, this is something I'd like to put forth as an idea. Me and Zena talked about this term, and I think we both feel pretty strongly about it.
And inspiration came from Serrano's book as well.
Correct.
Yes.
This is something she alluded to, but didn't use this language. Rather than discussing whether someone is passing, to me, it might be more effective in queer circles to describe, is that person in alignment with their gender? To say that another way, is the person in alignment with the gender identity they're trying to live in? So I propose the term alignment, right? To be in alignment with your gender. That is, if your gender is, in my case, I'm a non-binary trans woman. So the question would be: am I in alignment with my internal perception? I would say, for the most part, yes. Though there are things that I really want to change. Definitely could use some, more chest. Though they are growing in nicely. I like it. It's good stuff. I wasn't a super big fan beforehand, but they are growing on me. But I think that's the thing that we need to sort of shift, is this idea of passing feels like we're trying to trick cis people. It feels like we're doing an action when in reality what it is that we're trying to in some ways get them to see us as them. We're trying to in some ways not have the privilege that cis people just have. I want to, you've seen this in a lot of posts with trans women. I want to be treated just as a woman, not just as a trans woman. And the problem with that is that it's hard to do, because for your full self to be seen, you are a trans woman, and that does mean you're a woman. You are a woman 100%. But also there are these added aspects and intersections. And so the problem is that passing becomes an issue of trying to fit into that cisgenderness. I think by having this term alignment, we can get more into the mindset of, if my goal is to look more feminine, why is that a problem? If that's in alignment with my internal experience of my gender, that's nobody else's problem but mine. Because at that point, it's not really about whether I pass or not. It's about, are my social relationships reflecting, and this includes very, 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 very sort of neutral relationships. The lady at the administrative building, the guy at the service counter. When those people see me, am I in alignment with my gender to be treated as the way I want to be treated? That's, yeah. How do I come across myself rather than I do this group? I think, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, on the NB side of things, it is really helpful to go, do I align with what I'm feeling internally in that moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not a pressure to go, okay, I need to be this thing, or I need to go hardcore this way, or I need to go hardcore that way. I don't have to do that, which, again, for a lot of people, it's not helpful to go hardcore one way or the other when that's not really what you need for you.
Yeah.
Right? So I like this too.
I feel like the issue with the word passing is it presumes a couple of things. One, as I said before, it feels like you're doing something, but on top, when in reality, it's cis society giving you these privileges. You're not doing anything other than just being in the world. It's a passive act on your part. It's an active one on theirs, whether they acknowledge it or not, because they do this at an interpretive level. But on top of it, like, the issue with passing also has this thing of like, it assumes that you're not what you say you are by its nature. If you say I pass as a woman, are you saying that I look like a woman despite that I'm not? Because that's what the inference feels like. Right? And so rather than saying, Jess, you pass, saying something to the effect of, no, you look like a woman because you are one. And not just the passive, like, oh, you know, it doesn't matter how you present, you're a woman. That stuff's important too. Validation of that type is absolutely important. But there's a way in which I feel like when somebody's asking these questions, we need to be clear about what they're asking. If someone's like, hey, can you notice the feminine parts of me that I'm trying to accentuate? You know, if I'm wearing like I am now, makeup on my cheekbones, or I'm, you know, wearing a decent push-up bra or whatever. Can you acknowledge those things and do I feel feminine? But in that stage of transition where someone's still very, very new to their transition, things like that, that's fine to give that level of validation. But when we're talking about someone who's been far into their transition, I think the thing is I almost want to say to that person, like, no, you look like every other woman. Or in some ways, I want to say that you're in alignment with what I understand to be a woman. That's why I like this term gender alignment, because you're not just in alignment with your internal sense of self, but also from a certain perspective, sort of the quintessential idea of what is a woman or what is a man. Because the problem is that with passing, you're sort of doing something, but with alignment, it's just when I look at myself or Marionette or Tiamat or Zena or any of the other people who are trans in our community, do they feel like themselves? Do they feel like a woman or a man or non-binary to me?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think alignment leaves so much more room for all the variances in, you know, men and women, or, you know, things not on the binary. Right? We know on a conceptual level that, like, there are tons and tons of flavors of women, and they're all amazing, right? And you can look and dress and be all sorts of ways, right? And so trying to pass some of the passing stuff when you're, it's more, you know, when you're, this word kind of, I think, pushes people towards looking like a certain quintessential, you know, version of that, like a small version of the possibilities, and not really taking into account that the possibilities are actually quite endless. And so that's where I like aligning better, as well, because I think that leaves a lot more room for, no, I am whatever gender I am in my body right now, because there's infinite ways to be and exist. So yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, my gender is big-titted goth girl. Like, when I think of myself, I look at myself as either in long gowns because my hair works for it, or I think of myself in more like goth industrial clothing, things like that. I obviously have my work clothing, and that's fine, but that's not really the stuff that super resonates with me. And the thing is if you're aligning with your gender, I think at that point you're sort of not really so much worrying about the passing. Now, obviously, the idea of passing and the whole the defense mechanism aspect is still a thing. Obviously, if you're in a really, really strong area of very, you know, a lot of transphobes, it makes sense to try to pass. It makes sense to try to do that if you're trying to protect yourselves.
Well, and that would apply, and interestingly enough, having to pass for safety reasons, there are stories of this not just applying to trans people, but other people as well. There have been times where, like, you know, really butch-looking lesbians, you know, have been accused of being in the wrong bathroom. That's happened, right? And so there's a way in which, no, them not appearing in that, you know, narrow womanhood version that somebody else has is a safety thing, right? And so passing doesn't just apply, even though usually it just applies to trans people, can apply to multiple people. So
well, and that's my issue here is that like I think my concern is that I think we need new terminology. And I think at least as far as how we view ourselves, how we look at ourselves, I think gender alignment, this idea of aligning towards your gender, in some ways that can encompass the idea of it as well. If other people see you aligning with your gender, your transness really is inconsequential because in some ways they just see you as you are, not as you're pretending to be, which is what passing sort of like leads to.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a lot of language I think that needs reworking and redoing, especially when because the goal is we want people to feel good about themselves in their body, right?
Yep.
We want them to, have that positive, vibes about themselves, and not in a toxic way, but in a real way. Feeling solid here is important. You got one flesh suit, okay? Just one. That's it. And so I think it is a big thing right now to kind of rework a lot of this stuff to get away from some of the medicalization that has happened, and we're still dealing with, the traumas from our, people who've come before us, right? Like, I'm not that old, but no, people in past decades having to go through some shit. Yeah, no, we're still dealing with all of that. So I think it is important to start reworking these words to be, a lot kinder to us.
I agree. And the nice thing about the alignment thing as well is it invites NBs and xenogender folks to actually participate as well. Passing, again, assumes just masculine, feminine. But I think being able to... I've actually had these conversations with some clients. One of the things I would ask them is, okay, you're non-binary. Super cool. Here's my question. What gender would you rather be misgendered as? Because at certain levels, when you're dealing with cis society, that's just what's going to happen. People are going to misgender you, so you should probably pick which direction you want them to do that in. And in a lot of ways, this has kind of prompted people, weirdly enough, to start going into that gender alignment discussion. How do I want to present? What does my... Yeah, pros. Pros renegade. It is a fucked question, but is there any fault in it? Is there any difficulty with it? Like, no, it's if you're dealing with regular cis society and they don't understand these concepts, how do we get them to? Well, it takes time. And until then, which direction do you want them to see you? And in some cases, like especially newly out trans girls, it's a lot easier being a they, them than it is being she, her. Or in the case of some of the non-binary folks, I have folks that are non-binary because they really can't be male, but they don't necessarily resonate with feminine either. But it's easier to lead that way because it pulls out. Yeah, no one should have to ask that question, but the question unfortunately exists. Yeah, passing only Devious, you're completely right. Passing only exists in context of framing it in cis norms. And the thing is that I think we need to really kind of feel this idea out. Just as we're looking at a new theory of gender, Zena and I have been talking about this. I've been talking about this with Bimbo Politics as well. This idea of a emergent self-schema of gender to get away from all these shit theories that don't account for things. In the same way, I want to start coining this term gender alignment. Because I want to get away from passing. And I want to get away from clocking too. Fuck clocking. I know I say it occasionally. I know it pops out of my face. God, do I hate it though.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of this, the idealist to me also aligning, and I'd like to lend that idea to, cis people or people who haven't had a chance to explore yet or are questioning, because I really want to leave room, for a person who's a man to be exploring things that are feminine. I've got a friend, who really likes tiaras. He's very comfortable in his manhood. He's a dad, got a family, he's a gamer and really cool. And he's got Tiara Tuesday, and it's the coolest thing ever. But I want to leave room in all of this to validate whatever expression people have, right? Kind of unlock us from having to be a certain way, because fuck, that hurts, right? And if you're, feminine on the other side, being able to be like, you know what, it's okay for me to branch out into all of these different things, whether or not, it's considered to be men's work or some shit, whatever you want to call it. So
I also want to step in because chat's getting this definition wrong, and I just everyone's version
I'm
of it
not
is
even watching chat.
everyone's version of it is just I'm infuriated. I love you guys, but stop. So clocking is the act of being able to tell someone is trans. That's it. If you notice masculine features on a trans woman or anything like that, the problem is that the definitions everyone's using, I'll point out why I have problems with them. Being seen as assigned gender at birth instead of gender identity. That depends. Just because someone can clock you as trans doesn't mean they're necessarily not going to treat you as your identification. That's not built into the term. It's just being able to tell. Defense said someone being able to tell that you're trans and make you aware that they know. They don't necessarily have to make you aware, because we've made comments before about like, oh, this guy was on the L train and they I think they clocked me. Tiamat's is incorrect because, let's see, clocking is a purported ability. It's not a purported ability. It's just a noticing. Now, it is used sometimes in the sense of a verb, like that you're doing this action, because that's how TERFs will do it. They say they can always clock us, but this really just bullshit. And clocking is really just someone noticing. It's not really an action or an ability. Just sometimes you do it, though people will purport it is, and those people are idiots. Can you hide as cis? No, that's passing. Sticks. Passing would be the can you hide as cis. Clocking is noticing that they're not cis. Right? In fact, in ContraPoints' video, in what was it? The discussion around her transition, it was one of her early videos. I think it was the autogynephilia video. She talks about how the reason why she didn't transition earlier in life is because she was on a subway, saw a trans woman on there and clocked her and went, oh, people are going to see me as that, and basically deciding not to transition. She clocked that woman. Now, did that woman know? No. Did she never say anything to her? It's not like Contra made a bad comment or some shit. It just happened. So we want to get clear with like the terminology. Passing is when you appear to be cis. Clocking is when you can notice someone is trans. That's it. Those are the definitions, in my understanding. But I think gender alignment's a much better thing. And again, if you're talking about the notion of gender alignment, I think the thing is clocking kind of falls out of wayside, because really at that point, all it becomes is if this person's comfortable with this part of themselves, it doesn't matter. They're still a woman. They're still a man. They're still however they identify. But if they want to change those things, that's okay too. Because for them to be in alignment with their gender, that feels like a change they need to do. Both are acceptable under our system. Right?
Yeah, again, the focus getting people closer to being able to, feel comfy with their internal idea of themselves, as well as, their outside physical, internal, and, the social stuff outside of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get all of those things where people can feel comfy with all of that interaction.
Yeah, so I guess ask yourself, if you're a trans person, are you in alignment with how you conceive of your gender? If not, what needs to change? If you are, cool. And for cis folks, cis allies, I guess what I would say is, rather than trying to view someone as whether they are cis or trans, ask yourself, is this person in alignment with their gender? Because here's where it's going to get wild. One of the kids that I mentor, one of the things that they told us very recently that was super, super fucking weird is in their group of friends, and this is a little lesbian who is just, very short hair, very, just very, very super lesbo, and their friend recurringly misgendered them. Now, this kid is a cisgender woman, but their friend would keep calling them a man or keep saying they look like a boy, and to the point where they would just start making comments about their body in the same way people do to trans people. It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah, no, it was
like Mirrorland. It was like, wow, how does that happen? And the kid that we mentor was legitimately getting like upset about this, like in the same way that someone with dysphoria would, because I think they were genuinely dysphoric, not in the sense that they were trans and out of alignment with their trans identity, but that someone had misgendered them to such a degree that it was actually in contest with their cis identity.
Yeah, no, it's
like, That's where this gender stuff gets difficult, is because the binaries start to break down. It's totally conceivable that this could happen. And in fact, that I've heard it is amazing. But I want you to just think about this idea, gender alignment. And if you're a cis ally, just notice, is this person comfortable with themselves? Then it really isn't about cis or trans. They're just them.
And cis allies, ask yourself the same question. Are you in alignment?
Yeah, maybe something needs to change.
Right?
So with that said, we really like this term, and we're going to try to flesh it out more, but we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, consider donating to us. You can support us on our website, transgirltherapist.org. You can also help us on our Patreon, link below, or you can become a member here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching.